Councilmember Jacobowski went to return to get the agenda that she left at home. She will be present later.
Councilmember Tuck.
Present.
Councilmember Yu.
Here.
Vice Mayor Abdelrahman.
Coming in right
Walking in the door.
Say present, please. Say present.
Present.
here. Okay, so we have a quorum. Now, please rise and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, I have the other way around. Oh, anyway. The agenda is posted 72 hours prior to each meeting at the following locations: City Hall, Borough Library, Recreation Department. The agenda is also posted on the city's website. The City Council welcomes public input. Members of the public may address the City Council by completing a public comments card and give it to the City Clerk prior to the meeting. At this time, the public may address the City Council on items that are not on the agenda. Pursuant to state law, the City Council may not discuss or take any action on issues not on the meeting agenda. I reserve the right to place limits on duration of comments to 3 minutes. Staff may be asked to follow up on such items. Mr. Pedersen has a public comment on motor scooters.
Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. And please excuse my tournament shirt here. It says Tournament of Roses, but it doesn't say sponsored by Honda. So it's an old shirt. It's an old shirt. Just quickly, there's a new law effective January 1st of this year regarding motorized scooters. And basically, it allows motorized scooters on any highway with a speed limit of 35 miles an hour or less. And the speed limit for the scooter itself is 15 miles per hour. Now, I think you can already see that when cars are going 35 and the scooter's in front of you going 15, there's going to be a safety issue. So I think that the only good thing I can see about the law is that the local authorities, you people, have the authority to say that this is okay in San Marino, to authorize it. By the same token, I assume, and you lawyers would know better, it means if you do not authorize this, they're not allowed in San Marino. Because the law says specifically that you have the control, local authority control on the motor scooters on the streets. So I would encourage you to give it a very serious thought. I've had some bad experience in Glendale with a motor scooter. There was an article in the paper this morning, the Star News. Another one was hit in Los Angeles. I think it could be a real serious problem and it may get worse. So please consider it strongly along with the police department because I don't think we need scooters on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
We'll look into that, yes?
Just as a point of information for Mr. Pedersen, our city attorney is working on that item and we expect to have it in front of you at the February Wednesday meeting.
Great. Oh, I forgot to mention Happy New Year to all. Now, let's go to new business, presentation of department operational plans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. We are here this morning for this special meeting just for this one item. And this is the presentation of the departmental operational plans and priority initiative action plan. So this is part of our budget process for fiscal year 20. As we finished the budget process last year, obviously there were many improvements that we all wanted to implement, and so moving forward, this is one of them. Last year, one of the problems that we had during the budget process as a group were that a couple of you, specifically, I think primarily probably Vice Mayor Shepherd-Rami and Councilmember Udi, were lacking the information about what the departments do on a regular basis to be able to justify the budget for those departments. And we didn't have a good way to summarize that for you last year and give you the information that you needed to make decisions about whether that was an appropriate amount of money, not an appropriate amount of money, whether more was needed, less was needed, and so forth. So one of our goals for this year was to solve that problem by developing a manual that would give you the information to understand what departments are doing on a regular basis. So departmental workload is comprised of two separate pieces. One of the things that it does is the day-to-day business of running whatever the department is. Those are pieces of work that we're doing day in, day out. They may not be exciting and sexy, but they're the day in, day out work of any given department. They're the things that we kind of need to do to function, or the things that we've understood that we need to do to function. The other thing that comprises the department workload is whatever our kind of special projects are for the year. So we're referring to those as priority initiatives, which is the term that was used during our strategic planning process last year. And those are action planning. So priority initiatives are things that aren't day in, day out. They're either one-time only projects that get done once and then they're finished, or they are launched in a particular year and then the maintenance of it moves over into the operational plan. So to be able to fully understand what's going on in any given department, you really need to be able to see both sides of this. So what we have in front of you today is some basic information so that you can see both sides of this. I should say this is a work in progress. There will probably be some tweaks to some of this stuff. The operational plans are in pretty good shape, although after today's meeting we may go back and make some tweaks, and we may make some tweaks as we go forward, but the major substance will not change. The action plan presentation that we're giving to you is not in the format that it will ultimately be in. Today's presentation is just for your information. As I think most of you know, our priority initiatives will primarily be tracked through the Visio software that we purchased and we are just about to launch. We've been doing implementation of that for the last month or so, and they have all of the information in there. So when they produced a report for us, it wasn't exactly to serve the purposes of what we're doing this morning. So it's not as aesthetically pleasing as we might want it to be. But once the software is launched and the presentation is online, it will be much more attractive, user-friendly, and interactive. So, again, as I said, this is part of our overall fiscal year 20 budget process. We have worked closely with the budget subcommittee liaisons, which is Councilmember Udie and Councilmember Jacobowski, and we appreciate their time. They've spent a lot of time with us in the last several weeks looking over this. They looked over an initial one for one department just to be sure that we were on the right track and made a couple of formatting changes, but otherwise blessed it moving forward. So we went forward and put this whole manual together, which has been, I think, a really interesting process for all of us. I think we learned things about our own departments, and it's given us a tool that we can use in many different ways, not just in terms of informing you. So although this is very novel in municipal government to do something like this, I think we all see the value in what we've put together. Once we had the manual put together, we brought the subcommittee back, and Councilmember Udie and Jacobowski looked at it all over again, and we were a little giddy with excitement. They were very pleased. They were excited, they thought it was good work, and so we're happy to present it to you today. So that is part of the budget process. So what we're going to do as we go through this is each department has 2 slides. The first slide is the operational plan items, and that is actually just the cover page for each department. So if you flip to each department's first page, this will be the first slide. And that's what we'll have up there. So we're just going to briefly walk you through because we know you have all this information. The second slide will be a brief summary of whatever action plans the department is working on. So again, it's 2 sides of the same coin so that you can understand each departmental workload. Our initial presentations are going to be brief. You have had this information. We don't want to just read it to you. I know you can do that on your own. So we'll just briefly highlight it for you, and then whatever questions you have, obviously we'll be happy to dig in wherever you would like to dig in. We are going to ask that you let us get through all of the departments first, and then we can come back and Mayor, you can coordinate discussion on whichever things that you would like to coordinate on. And then I guess I probably would have done this at the end, but we may be exhausted and there may be a lot of questions at the end. So let me just say that after today, the next step of our budget process returns on the last Friday of January, our normal Friday, January meeting. And what we'll be doing in that meeting is talking about the future. We'll be talking about what priority initiatives you might want us to take care of next year. So it'll be a brainstorm session. You'll have the opportunity to think big. We will have done some work beforehand. We're going to do a SWOT analysis. We'll have some information for you. We'll have some proposals for you as well about priority initiatives. Some of those will be some of the priority initiatives we have this year that need to carry over because they weren't able to be finished. So you'll make some brainstorms and you'll do some initial whittling down of that list, and then we'll take that show on the road to the community, see what they think, and you'll come back in February and narrow that list down. So that's just a little bit of the lay of the land of where we are in the process. So without any further ado, let's dig in, and just to be sure that you get all my talking out of the way right up front, the city manager's department is first. So if you either turn to the first tab of your manual or you look up on the slide up front, We basically split the city manager's office into the major focus areas. You'll see there are 4. 1 is city clerk, 2 is organizational performance, 3 is city council support, and 4 is public engagement. And if you go down for each focus area, you can see the specific programs that are part of each focus area. And then at the very bottom, you'll see that we've given some key performance indicators for how you know if we're handling those focus areas well. This is the format that you'll see for all of the departments that we're about to present. Each department is divided up into their key focus areas with the programs listed under each relevant focus area and the key performance indicators there as well. So again, when we get to the conclusion of the presentation, if you have questions about any particular department, you're welcome to ask. Otherwise, let's go ahead to the next slide. So this next slide, these are our action plans. These are our priority initiatives that are assigned to the city manager's office. So you can see over on the left side, it's actually the special projects that we're working on. And then over on the right side is the critical success factor that project relates to. So in terms of the city manager's office, we're doing a website redesign, implementing the Visio software, developing a public information community engagement strategy, looking at plans for Stoneman and San Marino Center, and then I think with Chief Encounter's blessing, we have lifted the development of a wildlife management plan from police and put it in my department. So these are the special things that we're working on this year. I know the smile is...
Mosquito.
Yeah. Well, he just wanted to handcuff them, so that's the only thing that worked very well. So those are the 2 sides of the coin that make up the city manager's department, and that's the structure that all of these will follow. Without any further ado, I will turn it over to the next department, which I believe is HR.
And human resources is a full range of HR programs, mostly internal services, not a lot of out of the city activities. We have the transactional routine, the performance evaluations, the recruitment and selection.
Rich, can you move the microphone here?
Benefit administration. And then we have the situational responsive. For probably 75% of my day is not as I have scheduled, and we're responding to the public, to the departments, to the employees, the bargaining groups, could be a risk management issue. The personnel, broke it into 3 sections. Personnel goes from we're recruiting for employees, we're bringing them on board, benefit administration, to the labor and employee relations, and then to our risk management, which is work comp and liability claims against the city.
So the only priority initiative that was assigned to human resources at last year during the strategic planning process was the time tracking and project management software. That has been delayed given our IT situation, although we seem to be getting back on track for that. There are actually a number of other things that Rich is working on, but mostly that's just kind of getting on top of things since David's departure. But this is the one that was assigned in the strategic plan process. Which brings us to the finance department, and Finance Director Bennett could not be here with us today. So in lieu of him being here, you can see that there are essentially 4 focus areas in finance. There's financial planning, financial reporting, controllership, and then compliance with the city code in terms of things like procurement and treasury management. You can see again the programs that fall under each of those focus areas, and then finally the key performance indicators that are relevant for each of those focus areas. For priority initiatives, the 2 that were assigned during the strategic planning process were to evaluate recommendations from the Long-Term Strategic Financial Planning Committee and to consider proposals for comprehensive IT services.
Thank you. The mission of the Planning and Building Department is to preserve the comforts of the community, our neighborhoods, and our natural resources. We accomplish the goals of this mission statement through our various divisions within the department: current planning, advanced planning, management of DRC and planning commission meetings, building and safety, urban forestry, which is our tree preservation ordinance, business licenses, and code enforcement. The nuts and bolts of our daily operations are within current planning, building and safety, and business license. They work hand in hand on a daily basis to ensure that the operations move forward. With respect to issuing licenses for contractors, businesses, building and safety is with plan check services at our counter, as well as building inspections. Current planning is a variety of different functions, which include, as I mentioned, inspections as well, plan check of various projects, whether administrative or discretionary projects, as well as dealing with the public at the counter with respect to whether emails, phone calls, or at the actual physical counter. As I mentioned, a majority of these divisions involve heavy customer service experiences as well as face-to-face interactions with the residents, potential residents, contractors, engineers, designers, and architects. The Advanced Planning Division provides an opportunity for the staff to strategize for future goals and operations. In addition, this focus area is the launching point for our various land use laws and ordinances. Next slide, please. It is within this one focus area that the department can see the priority initiatives take shape, formalize, and then make their way into our daily operations. We are steadfast on the historic preservation study. The ARG will be presenting to the council an introductory of their organization and their steps and moving forward at the next council meeting. And the other initiatives are well underway, and we will be approaching the council soon with these various policies and ordinances and laws. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I've been cautioned about speaking too much and being too praiseworthy of my organization, so I will be very brief. You can see that we have 9 different focus areas. Generally policing, and this department's thought of patrol operations, detectives, and then our administrative area of records and communications. However, we expanded the focus areas to truly show all of the different things that do go on, from risk management to training and our staffing needs and other issues that you can see here. Key performance indicators always reflect what we want to achieve in programs. As you see in detectives, we certainly want to solve crimes and clear as many cases as we possibly can. Next slide, please. Our priority initiatives, obviously, number 1 is always reduction of crime and making sure the community is safe. Recruitment for our vacancies and making sure traffic is safe. Implementing our volunteer program and continuing the neighborhood watch participation, but that's even broader because of our success with the Community Policing Academy that we're going to expand that and continue with the very strong community involvement programs that we have. And our overall goal for success is having a safe community and our community members feeling safe. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Happy New Year. So the San Marino Fire Department is truly a full-service fire department. And we do that either through agreement with our adjacent neighbors or by contract with plan check and some of our building inspections. And as you know, we are a signatory to Unified Response, which means we operate as one fire department in the San Diego Valley here. We also contract with Verdugo for dispatch. And I can tell you that the functions of the fire department all focus on emergency response. And one of the focus areas, the first, is emergency medical services, which is really our customary and regular workload. It composes about 80% of our workload here in San Marino. And a vast majority of that is advanced life support, which means they are critical medical calls. Fire suppression and rescue, while fires are infrequent in our community, the dozen or so fires that we do experience, fortunately, are not significant, and we haven't had a fire that has spread to multiple buildings in a couple years, but it is something we prepare for and train for. We also are responsible for emergency management in our community, which is a challenge because 360 days of the year here in San Marino, the skies are blue and it's 70 degrees and nobody can envision the event that is going to be a significant impact on our community, and that's really our responsibility to prepare residents, prepare our executive staff, and prepare our city to deal with that eventuality. The other areas include fire prevention, which is new construction, which we have a significant amount of new construction in our community. We work with planning and building, on ensuring that the future of our city is going to be well thought through and safe by codes and by inspections. And the other areas include making sure that our equipment and maintenance, our inspections and audits, make sure our equipment is ready to go. And lastly, our public and disaster education, which means our CERT program, getting out in the community, working with the schools. We have programs with the high school teaching CPR. We also have junior fire programs with our middle school, and educating the residents to be prepared. Our focus areas really are a leap from our areas of our focus areas, ensuring a safe community by continuing with our inspections, our training, ensuring that our equipment and apparatus are ready to go, and that our city's prepared for the day that we have a disaster that may or may not impact our city. But those are our focus areas, and that concludes my report.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. As you can see on the slide here, we've got 7 focus areas in the Public Works Department, and each of these has a theme of how we are capturing the work that goes in the individual sub-programs. The performance indicators that are listed at the bottom are the simplest ones that we feel will indicate compliance with not only rules and regulations, but also just performance in general. Next slide. And then of our priority initiatives, I'm pleased to report that the upper 2 are generally completed and the lower 3 are underway. And as we go through the Visio process, you'll be getting detailed reporting on exactly what's going on in those priority initiatives. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. As you know, a main focus of the Recreation Department is to provide opportunities to bring the community together. And if you take a look at our focus areas, this is how we accomplish that goal. We have our enrichment programs, our aquatics program, our community building facilities, and administration. If you look below that, you will see the key performance indicators for each of those programs. And we made sure to divide everything up into the proper category. Next slide. As you know, there was not a priority initiative assigned directly to the department other than re-envisioning recreation programming, and the critical success factor for that will be efficient, responsive, and effective city services. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. With all due respect to the other departments in the city, no other department touches the community lives like the library does. Last year, we had over 245,000 library visits. We circulated almost 250,000 books. We put on 444 programs that were attended by over 12,000 people. There are only 13,000 people in this town. In our 10th year, the Kroll Library ranked in the top 5.9% in the nation of libraries in our class and in the top 10 of California libraries, according to Library Journal's 2018 Star Libraries listing. We are proud to support our community with professionalism and accuracy. Ask us anything. That being said, we've divided our library department into focus areas, specifically collection development, which is our brand. We buy books, and we weed books, we get rid of them. We do circulation. We provide patron services such as reference, and we also provide computer access. We also, almost uniquely among public libraries, generate revenue. Last year, we grossed over $220,000 in passport acceptance fees. We engage in outreach, community engagement, and programming, as I said. And we also take care of our building and try to keep up our professional bona fides, if you will. We keep current. Next slide, please. That being said, our initiatives are consistent with our focus areas. Once again, we buy books, we deliver services, and we try to be as efficient as we can. And that concludes my report.
Mayor and Council, that concludes our initial presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you have, but before we do that, if I could occupy with the mundane task, if everybody could check their phones, Apple Watches, etc. There is a ringing that I think we all are hearing, and whoever it is, if you would silence that, we do think it's over in this general direction.
No, mine went off, but mine's not ringing.
Yours is a whole separate issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, no, there it is. You're pointing up? Do you think it's?
No, it's still going.
Yeah.
I'll hear it too, I don't know what
Is that one of the library initiatives?
It will be
That's
now.
crazy.
it is. Yeah, I'm not sure.
So we're hearing it up there?
It's still going.
Oh, yeah. No.
It might be everything next door, it's just filtering through.
Okay.
Chris, that's not your
Yeah, I can check.
General, just to see if we can track down the sounds.
Clearly an iPhone on your computer.
Anywho, that concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer whatever.
There's a phone being held
Question.
hostage.
There's a phone being held hostage somewhere, and we will rescue it. We are open for any comments or questions that you might have. We really just share this with you today. And again, this was a very exhaustive process, but incredibly informative and very helpful once we reviewed it. So, Mr. Mayor?
All right, Councilmember Holt, do you have any question?
I do, and it comes from the hierarchy here. We don't have a separate human resources department.
We don't. What we decided to do for the purposes of this is follow the structure of the budget document. And in the budget document, once we split out the cost for the city manager's office, the finance department, and HR, they each have separate sections in the budget, so we tried to reflect that.
Because we don't have an HR director. I don't want anybody to get the idea that we're going to go out and hire an HR director and add another director.
We will not be going out and
Okay.
hiring an HR director.
And finance also reports directly to you, is that right?
That is correct. Well, all of the departments report directly to me, but there is a director at the top of the finance department.
There is a director at the top of finance. Oh, that's right, we changed it. Thank you.
Councilmember Jakubowski.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we are on the city manager's office, first of all, I want to compliment you, and all of the department has lots and lots of work, and it's just a joy to read these. I noticed, and those of us who were previously involved in some of the reviews, the city clerk has very detailed described duties that are well spelled out and make us realize the volume of work. But my question beyond that is, the first few pages, you cover the city clerk. Beyond that, it's mostly under the focus area, but not necessarily a named staff person for those duties. Is that something in the future that we will be building in, just so we can have a better idea of who handles what, perhaps, in directing folks or better knowing who's in charge of what area?
So that would not likely come in this document. And departments like mine that have 3 people in it, including myself, are much easier to spell out who's responsible for what. It also looks more glaring because there is a specific city clerk function that only requires one person for the most part. But many of our departments are large and there are not focus areas assigned to one person. There would be tasks assigned to people. So if you have questions about what program areas are being handled by individuals in any department, if you let us know, we'd be happy to let you know who's primarily handling that. But I would not see that happening in this particular document.
Oh, I apologize. It was actually the alarm I set on my iPad. Just realized
That's
that.
crazy.
I know, it's driving me crazy. Anyway, Councilmember Yudi.
Thank you for putting this together. I think it's really helpful to see, the activities that people are doing. A couple of, observations. One is for this to tie together and be super meaningful. is to tie it to Invisio and the operating metrics to see what's going on. So I think that's kind of still a work in progress. I caution you, and this will sound bad coming from me, but I caution you on the number of things you're going to try to measure or track. And I would encourage each department just to go find those 3 to 6 things that are really move the needle and are meaningful. And let's just start simple, because I didn't go count the number of things that you might measure here, but it would be in the hundreds, which is just way too many. So I encourage you, when we get further into the budget process, come back with really what are those 2 or 3 to 6, things that really will move the needle. On the things that I think any department that directly interfaces with the public should try to figure out how to have a customer satisfaction measurement. I think I saw it with the recreation department, but I didn't see it like with public works or with planning and building. You interface a lot with customers. Like it would be good to get feedback from them on how satisfied they are with those interactions. And then also with the amount of the activities, it's also useful to know how much time is spent in each one of the activities. So either as maybe hours or maybe percent, because when you write them all down, they all look the same. But if something is like 85% of your time or 85% important, that's a little it resonates a little bit louder, and that will help us when we get to the budgeting process on where really to help throw money at the places that are really important.
Thanks.
Vice Mayor?
Did you ask Mayor, former Mayor Toll?
Yes.
Okay.
Come first.
Okay, sorry. Who? All right, I really appreciate this. Oh my gosh, too. And I didn't see that one coming, sorry, thank you. I appreciate the work that was done here, and I know by all departments, this was creation is always the first step in getting a better idea for us and for you and for measurement of action on behalf of each department and to outline goals. I did have a couple concerns, generally speaking, that I would like to see as a focus area in each one of the departments, more of a consideration of interaction with the public. And this kind of goes to Councilman Udi's comment. If we're thinking about those measurements that we're going to focus on or hone in on, there's so many under each category of each focus area of each. But I really wanted a draw out and a focus on interaction with the public and our residents particularly. And so I know some departments did that, and I appreciated that when I saw it, but I'd like to see it throughout in each department. I mean, obviously we have statistical analysis, how many visits or how many people sign up for something or are involved in an academy or something, but I really think that service is what we're trying to get, and a positive interaction across the board, and help move that to the top as far as a focus area. And I don't know how to do it, but I wanted to see that more brought out when you can find it. The second thought I had overall is that I would like to see priority initiatives as part of this. I understand they'll drop away and come out, but even if they're dated as to what year, if it's a 2-year process, but to keep those things going. Because kind of like in the past, it seemed to me that generally some things are brought to City Hall and staff starts initiatives and City Council gives direction, but then those things drop off or are reformed. And that happens, and I understand that over time, but I want the initiatives to be there and say what we're working on, what we've accomplished, and then add to that instead of dropping things away. Because I don't want next year to start from scratch again when we have things in play or things that aren't quite done. So I would like to see those become embedded in this, though I understand that those are year to year will be resolved, or we may move to a different program. But I'd like to see that tracked and become part of this. So we can then look back 2 years from now and remember that we had this, that a certain department handled it in this way, and that's a positive impact for the community to see that we've accomplished certain things, as well as for us to keep track of what's been completed and ongoing. So those are 2 things I think generally would help this be a more useful document, and I don't know if that can be, incorporated the next time around, or how to do that?
So those are great suggestions, and we're on our way to doing versions of that already. If you look at any given department and you go past these pages, for lack of any better way to describe them, you get to something that says Priority Initiative Action Plan Overview. And you'll see in here, these are literally the steps of every single priority initiative broken down into what it is that gets done. It's not pretty in here because this was just, and I should give a huge shout out, by the way, to Amanda Fowler, who did a lot of work on these documents to try to make it look like it all came from one person instead of 10 different people, and make it in a user-friendly format. So the gratitude I have is not measurable for the work that she did. But we pulled the information out of Invisio to give this to you. It's not in a user-friendly format. This isn't the way it's going to look eventually. But I think what you're saying is, let's have a place where this stuff gets memorialized, and we can always look back and see the history. And the good news is Invisio will give us the ability to do that, and once it's been launched, it will be able to run reports in a way that are kind of exactly what you're talking about. The only catch about Invisio is it just requires a different mindset when you're looking at how to sort the information. Invisio is not focused on departmental workload, they're focused on our critical success factors. So it, for example, will order things under safe communities, without regard to whether the wildlife program is in my office, emergency management is the fire department, and crime is in the police department. They'll all be listed there. So it's not set up in the same way, but we will absolutely have them side by side.
Okay, and I did, and I appreciate for today's meeting, this priority initiative, I think pages in this, even that would be a great way just to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you just include that at the outset, though I understand. And so that gets to my third point. One more thing was, my concern was that, or I had a general concern after reading it all, was that to some extent when things are divided like this, you do sort of get, and this goes to your last point about siloing work. For example, wildlife is only now the city manager. Well, no, it's going to always be the first call to fire or whatever. I mean, I don't know, heaven forbid, but, or police, so you're going to get less collaboration if we divide up tasks too much. And so that's why I don't even know if priority initiatives should be a citywide category, because they are citywide initiatives that we are all working on together. And building and planning has issues that involve police and involve, countless departments. So that was my concern a little bit with this, is we lose the ability for, or we have to always remain focused on the ability for cross-department work toward our priority initiatives. They're kind of outside departments, and so that's my concern.
So I see Councilmember Udi shaking his head, so I don't want to say something.
Somebody's got to own it, somebody needs to be responsible.
And that's really what this document
it can't be a group
reflects.
responsibility, somebody's got to own it.
So
And collaborate
when
and
you
get it done,
see,
but
when you see this manual, the point of this manual is just so you understand the work that's going on predominantly in each department. This is not a document that reflects whether we have good teamwork or bad teamwork among the executive team. We have good teamwork. And of course, it's true the wildlife program is a perfect example. The fact that it will be housed in my department doesn't change the fact that there'll be involvement from multiple different departments. So this is just to give you kind of a point person face.
Okay.
But rest assured, we will still speak to each other. Sometimes.
Really.
Sometimes.
Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank all the departments for the presentation, and I'm going to open up to the public. Do you have any comments? No? Okay, then that's it.
Okay, then I would just say, in general, we are going to take your comments today as a general acceptance of this document. It will shift a little bit. We'll incorporate some of the comments that we've heard today. It'll be kind of a living document, although the point of an operational plan is not that it changes on a regular basis, but we want to continue to get it into a good format until it's done. And this will be a document that you'll see repeatedly during the budget process. And we will be back in the budget process again on January 25th to talk about new priority initiatives or carryover priority initiatives.
I'm glad we have started this process.
when are we going to have a demo of Invisio?
That is a good question. I'll talk to Amanda and we'll figure out when we can have that launched for you. We're super close. The data is all in there, which is the beginning place.
Yeah,
But I'll get that
because the sooner we can match the data to the words and the actions, the more meaningful it will be.
Okay, and next is closed session. The City Council will recess to closed session.
Public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any public comments? Nope, seeing none. All right. Thank you.